You reach for something sweet before you even think about it. A candy wrapper crinkles. A soda can hisses open. A spoon dips into something sugary, standing in a kitchen, in the middle of an ordinary day. It feels automatic. It feels like your body knows exactly what it needs. But the real answer is far stranger than a craving. For almost the entire span of human existence, sugar barely existed. Not the way you know it. No bags of it on a shelf. No bottles of it dissolved in flavored water. For roughly 2 million years, the only sweetness a human being could find was hidden, seasonal, and often guarded by something that could sting you half to death. So why does your brain still light up like it just won something? To understand that, you have to go back to what your ancestors actually ate. And it wasn't what you think. Picture a small group of early humans moving across a dry, open landscape. They are not farming. They have no stored grain, no refrigerator, no vending machine down the hall. Every calorie they eat that day, they found that day, or the day before. Roots, tubers, leafy greens tough enough to need real chewing, insects, whatever animal they managed to kill or scavenge. Sugar, in the form you know it, simply was not on the menu. And what was on the menu depended entirely on where you were born. A forager near the equator might eat dozens of different plants across a single year, switching with the seasons, tracking which fruit was ripening where. A forager near the Arctic Circle might eat almost no plants at all, surviving instead on fat and meat from seals and caribou. There was no single ancestral diet. There were hundreds of them, shaped by geography, climate, and whatever the land was willing to give up that week. But almost none of them looked anything like a modern grocery store aisle. Most days were built around what anthropologists sometimes call fallback foods. Not the exciting stuff, not the honey, not the fresh kill. Tubers, roots, nuts, foods that were reliable, filling, and almost never sweet, but that a group could always dig up when nothing better was available. These unglamorous staples were the backbone of survival. The rare sugary find was the exception that everyone remembered, not the meal that kept them alive. That's an important distinction because it shapes how the brain assigns value. A food you can count on gets treated as ordinary. A food you can't count on, one that shows up rarely and disappears fast, gets treated as urgent. Your brain doesn't reward you for eating the reliable tuber. It rewards you, powerfully, for finding the honeycomb. Fruit existed, but it wasn't the fruit you buy today. Wild fruit was smaller, more fibrous, and far less sweet than anything bred and cultivated over the last few thousand years. Modern bananas, modern apples, modern grapes, they've all been selectively bred, generation after generation, to be sweeter, bigger, and softer than their wild ancestors. Your Pleistocene ancestors were not eating anything close to a supermarket banana. There was one exception, one rare, prized, almost dangerous source of pure sweetness: honey. Anthropologist Alyssa Crittenden has spent years studying the Hadza, one of the last hunter-gatherer groups on Earth, living in what is now Tanzania. Her research shows that when honey is in season, it can become a genuinely significant part of what the Hadza eat, sometimes making up a striking share of their daily calories for a stretch of the year. But getting that honey meant climbing a tree while a swarm of angry bees defended it. It meant risk, effort, and a narrow seasonal window. It was never guaranteed. It was never sitting in a drawer, waiting for a bad afternoon. So here's the strange part. If sugar was this rare, why does your brain respond to it like it just found buried treasure? Because for most of human history, sweetness meant something very specific. It meant safe. It meant ripe. It meant energy-dense and not poisonous. A bitter plant might kill you. A sweet one almost never did. Anything that tasted like that was worth eating right away and worth eating as much of as you could, because it wouldn't last, and something else might get to it first. Your brain didn't evolve to handle moderation around sugar. It evolved to binge on it, because binging was the correct strategy in a world where sugar almost never showed up. That single mismatch is doing more work in your life than you probably realize. Primatologist Catherine Milton spent decades comparing the diets of humans to those of other primates, and her research points to something remarkable. Diet quality itself may have helped shape the evolution of the human brain. A body that could access more calories more efficiently could afford to grow and fuel a bigger, more expensive brain. Chimpanzees spend most of their waking hours chewing tough, fibrous, low-calorie plant matter just to get by. Your ancestors needed something better. And that leads to another piece of the puzzle, one most people never think about. Cooking. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has argued, in his research on human evolution, that the invention of cooking may have been one of the single most important turning points in the human story. Cooked food is easier to digest. It unlocks more usable energy from the exact same ingredients. A cooked root delivers more calories more easily than a raw one ever could. Chew less, digest less, absorb more. That trade quietly rewired an entire species. In other words, your ancestors weren't just hunting for food. They were, without knowing it, hunting for efficiency. Every trick that delivered more energy for less effort got passed down, reinforced, favored by survival itself. Sugar was simply the ultimate shortcut. Maximum energy, minimum effort to digest. The problem is, that shortcut used to come with a built-in limit. Scarcity did the regulating for you. Now ask yourself what happens when that limit disappears. In 1985, physician S. Boyd Eaton published a now famous paper comparing the diet our bodies evolved to handle with the diet most people actually eat today. His conclusion was blunt. The mismatch between ancestral eating patterns and modern eating patterns may help explain a whole range of health problems that barely existed for most of human history. Because here's what actually changed. It wasn't your biology, it was your environment. For 2 million years, sugar was rare, seasonal, and hard-won. Then, in a span of time so short it barely registers on an evolutionary timescale, sugar became cheap, constant, and everywhere. Sugarcane cultivation spread. Refining techniques improved. Global trade routes carried it across oceans. What was once a forest treasure worth risking a beehive for became a commodity sold by the sack, then by the truckload, then baked, poured, and sprayed into almost everything on a shelf. It went from something you climbed a tree and risked getting stung for to something sitting in a bowl on a counter, unguarded, unlimited, never further away than the nearest wrapper. Your brain, though? Your brain never got the memo. It still treats sugar like it's rare. It still floods you with reward the moment you taste it. It still whispers that you should eat as much as you can, right now, because who knows when you'll find it again. Except now, you'll find it again in about 10 minutes, at the vending machine down the hall. And the modern food industry knows this better than almost anyone. Products are tested and adjusted until they hit what food scientists sometimes call a pleasure peak, the exact level of sweetness most likely to make you want another bite. Not too little, not so much it overwhelms you, just enough to keep your ancient reward system firing over and over long after the meal was supposed to be finished. Walk down any supermarket aisle and you're surrounded by more sweetness than your ancestors would have encountered across their entire lives. Boxes of it, bottles of it, bags of it, stacked floor to ceiling, none of it guarded by bees, none of it seasonal, none of it ever running out. Your eyes scan the shelf the same way an ancestor's eyes once scanned a tree line, searching for the one bright, sweet thing worth chasing. Except now, every single shelf says yes. That's the twist hiding underneath something as small as a candy wrapper. You're not weak when you crave sugar. You're ancient. You're running software built for a world of scarcity, inside a body standing in the middle of a world of abundance. Think about the last time you told yourself you'd just have one bite, one piece, just a little. That wasn't a failure of willpower. That was 2 million years of evolutionary programming, meeting a shelf that was never supposed to exist. It shows up in the small moments you barely notice. The way a bakery smell can pull you across a room. The way a single sweet taste can make it strangely hard to stop at just one. The way something as small as dessert can feel like it matters more than it logically should. None of that is a personal flaw. It's an ancient survival strategy still running inside a world it was never designed for. Who knew a candy bar could carry 2 million years of history inside it? Think of it this way. Somewhere inside you is a version of yourself, standing at the base of a tree, heart pounding, bees swarming, reaching for a dripping honeycomb that might only come around once a season. That version of you learned, over hundreds of thousands of years, that sweetness this good does not wait. You eat it now, all of it, because tomorrow it may be gone. That ancient hunger never left. It just changed its address. It used to live in a treetop. Now it lives in a vending machine, a checkout aisle, a cupboard 3 steps from where you're sitting right now. None of this means you're broken. It means you're old. Older than farming. Older than fire, if you go back far enough. Your appetite was assembled across a timescale so long it's hard to picture. Refined for a world that mostly ran out. It was never built for a world that never does. Understanding that changes something. Not the craving itself, that's not going anywhere. But maybe the story you tell yourself about it. The next sugary pull you feel isn't a personal failing showing up out of nowhere. It's an inheritance. A message passed down from a version of you that climbed trees and outran bees for a taste of something this good, still doing its job, thousands of generations later. Your ancestors' bodies were built by scarcity. Yours is standing in the middle of permanent surplus, using the exact same wiring. So the next time you reach for something sweet before you even think about it, notice what's actually happening underneath. It's not your body asking for what it needs. It's 2 million years of scarcity still running the show.